Hey out there, it's Wake Angel 2001 coming at you from my hotel room at the Hilton Garden Inn. Right? It's Hilton, right, guys?
Yep.
Alright, so I got up at 7 o'clock this morning to watch Sonic Boom live. That's something I haven't done since the first episode. And of course, the four guys I'm staying with, well, the two guys and the two girls I'm staying with, all slept like a bunch of freaking rocks, and no one noticed that the TV was even on. So I'm pretty much just here by myself. And although some of them might decide to photobomb during this shooting. Alright, so today's episode was called Hedgehog Day. And it was an homage to that Bill Murray movie, Groundhog Day. Or, for you fetuses out there, I guess Tom Cruise's Edge of Tomorrow might be a more contemporary reference. One of those things where the day just keeps on repeating itself. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It starts with Dr. Eggman waking up in his evil lair, thinking that he's finally has his plan to defeat Sonic once and for all. And Orbot comes in with the tray of breakfast, wakey wakey, eggs and bakey, and Eggman tells him not to say that because he doesn't like that stupid saying. And when he sees an empty juice glass, he's like, "Where's the fresh squeezed orange juice?" And Orbot takes an orange and he sucks the orange dry and then squirts orange juice out of his finger. And all of a sudden, Dr. Eggman doesn't want orange juice anymore. Like, if you built a juicer into your robot, why would you make it aesthetically displeasing? So he goes out to attack Sonic, and they're all watching a movie. It's some movie starring that comedy chimp guy, and then Eggman attacks, and you know his robots all attack. They get pounded and destroyed, and it ends with him shooting a fireball, his super weapon, at Sonic. But Amy manages to deflect it with her hammer, and at that moment, he fires his super duper weapon, which is a blue fireball. But just before the two fireballs hit each other, a lightning bolt strikes the intersection point, and a huge flash reacts and causes Dr. Eggman to wake up in his bed the next morning. And Orbot comes in and says the exact same thing, and after a little while he realizes he's living a do-over day because all the same jokes are repeating themselves. Like when he says to prepare the egg tank, Cubot comes up with a tank top with an egg on it. Egg tank. I'm going to strangle something. For these terrible puns. So Dr. Eggman proceeds to do the plan again the same way, and the same thing happens. So when he realizes he's in the loop, he decides to see if he can refine the plan. Like he notices that Amy keeps on deflecting the fireball, so he tries to get a robot to hold Amy's hammer so that she can't do that. But then Tails' projector has this setting where like sonic waves come out and disrupt the robot. So he steals all the movies except for one movie that stars a mime. So when Tails pushes that button, there's no soundtrack on the movie to distract the robots. So he actually succeeds in capturing Sonic, but then the day repeats itself anyway. Turns out that the time loop is self-sustaining. So he tries to figure out what he's doing wrong. He's doing a whole bunch of math to see if he can figure out the time loop. And they even have this whole thing where like they have a whole bunch of projected equations and stuff. But it turns out that it's just Cubot playing with a hollow projector thingy. It's literally called the hollow projector thingy. So look at you. You look like a crazy moron to me. That was if you guys need to use a can, just there. Garbage can, that is. Yes, there's people around me. They're just off camera. Trust me. Alright, so Dr. Eggman, realizing he can't get himself out of the time loop, decides to ask Sonic and Tails directly for help. At one point he even cuts off his mustache because just to prove to everybody that time is meaningless, because it'll just come back in the next iteration. Now remember, he gave up Sonic's powers to preserve that mustache in an earlier episode, and here he is cutting it off. So Tails figures out how to solve the problem, but the day loops itself back before they can actually execute it. So he goes to Tails earlier in the day to see if he can get him to believe him, and And he learns all kinds of stuff, like he has to tell him a dream he had the previous day, something about getting chased by a giant sock puppet. And it turns out that Tails says the explosion needs to be contained by a sphere of dense material. That'll prevent the time loop from occurring next time the reaction occurs. So they go through the trouble of making the thing, but the metal is so dense that the only one strong enough to move it is Knuckles. So in the next time loop, they bring Knuckles into the lab, and he picks up the metal ball, but as he walks away, he says he has an itch on his neck. So when Eggman goes to find where the itch is, the time loop happens again. In the next iteration, Knuckles drops a ball and breaks Eggman's foot. In the next iteration, Knuckles has to take a call. Knuckles keeps on finding different excuses to not carry this thing. So in the next loop, instead of having him carry the thing, they ask what's going on, and he says that he had a dentist appointment the next day where he had to have a tooth pulled, and he doesn't want to do that. So Amy, being the sensitive maternal type, tries to convince him that the dentist is only there to help, and then Styx just throws him down and pulls a tooth out with a piece of string she has. So apparently that solves the problem, and everything is resolved off screen because the next time we see it flash as if the time loop occurred. But when he wakes up the next morning, Orbot comes up with a plate of breakfast that has sausage on it instead of bacon. So that proves that the time loop is done, and then we see the time loop flash, but it turns out it's just Cubot taking a picture with a camera to save this moment for posterity. And that is the episode. Now, these time loop dealies, a lot of shows do them. I think there's been a SpongeBob episode like this. Then again, it's been 15 years. There's been a SpongeBob episode of everything. But my point is that the standard do-over day thing is a pretty common trope in cartoons now. Although I do think this is one of the few times the focus is on the villain, because it's usually on the hero trying to solve a problem. Here, it's the villain who's trying to refine his attack plan. So I guess that's a pretty unique spin. Other than that, the episode's fairly well-rounded. We get to see they repeat the day over and over only a couple of times because otherwise the episode would be way too repetitive, and it's actually really good and well done. Yeah, you see, I was kind of hoping that some of my roommates would watch the episode with me so that they could provide their own commentary.
Sorry.
Yes, but some people just sleep way too heavily. So I guess it's really only my perspective, like always. And, since technically speaking, this episode just kind of repeated the same day a few times, it's not like there's too much to talk about. But, this storyline, although well-worn, it had a pretty nice twist on it by focusing on the bad guy instead of the good guys, and was otherwise very well executed. So this has been a pretty good episode of the series. Not the best so far, but like I said, the show's managed to maintain a pretty consistently good quality. And hopefully next week will be at least as funny as this. All right, so this has been the next Sonic Boom vlog, the first one done during a convention. And aside from me wearing my Castiel costume, there was nothing special about it. All right, so I will see you guys next week.